We have some interesting news to discuss today as the Miami Heat have made an interesting roster move that could be very interesting and something to pay attention to going forward. So we'll break that down in this episode, as well as Erik Spoelstra. He has spoken out in a lot of things, including the Heat struggles, and he also gave some praise to Kyle Lowry, who is a former Heat. So stay tuned for all that episode. But before we do, quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. We notice 98% of you who are watching aren't subscribed. So if you aren't already, make sure to hit that button. It would mean the world to us as we're approaching 1,000 subscribers now, and that is a big milestone for us. Now, Houston, we have a lot to discuss today. The Heat don't play today, maybe luckily because of the way they've been playing lately, but let's discuss some interesting things. So Miami Heat are making moves, and they have officially assigned or reassigned Orlando Robinson to the G League following the last game on Saturday. Obviously, the Miami Heat faced off against the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. They lost, and he only logged 1 minute, and after the game, the Heat assigned him to the G League. Now, Houston, I'll just get your thoughts on this move, this guy. Obviously, he hasn't played much for the Heat this season. I'll get into his stats and stuff in a second, but do you think this, I think this is going to be good for him going forward, so hopefully he can turn into some sort of rotation piece down the line, whether that's this year, probably not, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, him going down to the G League, it's going to be interesting. Hopefully, it's fully for development, as right now he's not really touching the rotation. Like you said earlier, he's only played like a handful of minutes all year long. Granted, he did look pretty good for who he is in the time that he did get, due to the fact that he is a 7 foot guy. He can stretch the floor, he can hit an open three. Again, just he's not the big rim protector we need. I feel like if he was more of the defensive non-liability around the rim, we'd be fine. He'd probably even see more minutes.
Yeah, it's not a huge move, but it's something that, again, with a player like him, when he's not getting very many minutes at all, you kind of want to send him down to the G League to hopefully develop into that. You can see here, he's played 20 games for the Heat this season, is averaging 4 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, shooting a pretty efficient 52% from the field, and he's been great at his time in the G League with the Heat's affiliate, obviously the Skyforce. But, again, I mean, it sucks for that player like him. Obviously, he wants to be in the NBA, but when you're looking at his actual stats, he needs time to develop,
Yeah.
needs some more time to develop. It's the second year now. He's played a total of 51 games. Hasn't really, I mean, he's averaging 11 minutes, but a lot of that is skewed because of some games where he played more and then some games where he played less. So I think going forward, it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. He has all the tools. He gets praised by a lot of Heat insiders and prospect guys. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to be playing very many minutes at all, may as well send him down to hopefully develop more in the G League. And do you see him as a pretty integral piece going forward, or do you think that this is just a move to make some space and hopefully make him better?
I believe he can be I feel like he can definitely be a real piece for the Miami Heat. I don't think he'll be a starter, especially this year, but he can definitely fill in some minutes, definitely give some productive minutes at that. With the skill set he does have, he can definitely find some time on this roster. Again, going down in the G League, it's strictly so he doesn't just like flame out, I guess you can say. That 11 minutes per game is definitely skewed, like you said, because there's a majority of the games we don't even see him on the floor for the Miami Heat. So setting him down to the G League, he's going to play a lot compared to what he does in the NBA, and it'll keep him fresh. It'll develop him even more rather than him just sitting on the bench doing nothing, playing spectator.
Yeah, and the Heat need some big man prospects. They need to continue to develop and get a big body. Obviously, he's not going to be the one that is going to help with a run this season or championship run this season. But if he can continue to develop, he will be good, as he's averaged 28 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks a game in the G League. So, I mean, he's crazy, and hopefully going forward, he can turn some of that into the actual NBA, which, like we know, is not an easy thing to do whatsoever, but he could be a player that the Heat can use going forward, especially with his size and the way the Heat have struggled against big men going forward. But let's move on now to Erik Spoelstra. He spoke out on the struggles. Now, Houston, I'll get your thoughts on the struggles in general here as well. I know you probably made a video on it the post game earlier, but Heat are not in a great place right now. Obviously, he made the Terry Rozier trade. He hasn't been playing the best. It's going to take some time for him to get acclimated. And he basically, what he had to say was, quote, right now we're going to rally around each other, rally around our identity. It is a tough time right now. And for a coach who's used to winning so much, one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the league, what do you do at this point? I mean, Miami Heat are they're struggling. They're free falling a little bit. They'll still be okay. I don't think it's time to panic yet. The trade deadline's still not over, but they made their big splash, and it's interesting so far. Way too soon to tell on that, but they're losing games and they're losing a lot of them.
Yeah, the losses are just getting ridiculous at this point. I went over earlier in the video. Five of the 6 losses that we are currently on the 6 game losing streak have all been the Eastern Conference teams. They've
Yep.
all like 2 of them have been in division. We've lost to teams including the Grizzlies. They didn't have Ja Morant. Jaren Jackson went 5 of 21 in that game, just was abysmal, and we got beat by a bunch of role players. We played the Hawks. They didn't have Trae Young. Got beat by a bunch of role players, including Dejounte Murray. He's not much of a role player. but then getting absolutely just ripped apart by the Celtics and the Knicks, who are two upper echelon teams in the Eastern Conference, at least for now, the 1 seed and the 4 seed as of today. We really need to like relearn how to play defense, if you will. We need to box out, we need to rebound a lot more, and we need to accept the challenge on the defensive side of things. Because if the defense doesn't start like showing up game after game, we are going to be in trouble. Like you said, I agree 1,000,000%. Do not sell all your stock in Miami. Do not jump off the boat. Do not panic yet. We haven't even reached the All-Star break. And with someone as great as Erik Spoelstra, this is all we need. All we need is a little break, that little, what is it, not even a week break for the All-Star break, and things could possibly do a 180-degree turn and get right back to how we were. So do not panic yet. And again, only 3 games for Rozier in a Miami Heat uniform. I know it hasn't been pretty. It hasn't been even good, but don't panic yet. Just give it some time. Let things really come to fruition before we begin to panic.
And Jaime Jaquez has been out for the majority of those games, and he's obviously an integral part to this
Yeah.
team. So it's a lot of moving pieces right now with the Miami Heat. And Spoelstra's right. They're going to rally around each other. They're going to rally around their identity. I mean, they traded one of their biggest guys regarding identity, regarding the clubhouse, the locker room, sorry. And that's obviously towards the end of it. It kind of ended. His Heat tenure ended kind of weird, but he was a big part of that this season. And let's just get into that now, which is the other topic, which is Lowry got praised by Erik Spoelstra. This happened a couple of days ago. Obviously, the trade is over now, but it's very interesting to think about. Maybe, I mean, Lowry's impact as a Heat was very prominent, but he's gone now. And basically what Spoelstra had to say is, quote, "We all pushed Kyle to get here, and that was for a reason. You can never define him by his stats. His whole career, particularly as an ultimate winner." He basically goes on to say his ability to play well in the playoffs, him in the locker room, all these things played intangible parts to this team being good for how many years they've been good now, the past few years, championship, especially even during their championship run there. Do you think the Heat are going to regret trading Kyle Lowry at all? Obviously, I feel like it had to happen. He unfollowed people on Instagram. Jaime Jaquez caught a stray there. It was going to come to an end, but maybe in an ultimate world where that doesn't happen, they don't make a trade for Terry Rozier. Who knows? But do you think that's going to? Do you think Lowry being gone is the reason for any of this? I doubt it, but it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's very much an interesting conversation. I absolutely don't think the Miami Heat are going to be like bitten from this or regret it in any way. Only or not only because, but mainly because Udonis Haslem, regardless of whether or not he's a coach on the team or a player on the team, thinks that he's like the number one guy on the team coming off the bench in the sense of morale reasons and just keeping everyone focused on the objective. He's so good. He travels with the team. It seems like he's never not there with the team. And it shows. Like he's always barking at some player, whether it be his retirement night or just a regular game against the Pistons or even the Magic or something that seems like a game that doesn't matter. Udonis Haslem is always there playing drill instructor. I feel like that's what Lowry was a lot of to the Heat. Again, like Spo said, it's not about the stats. He's not going to wow you when you look at the box score, but it's everything else he does when he leads and he like shows the ways of how to do things, how to handle yourself, let alone how to play the game of basketball effectively and efficiently. We have someone like Haslam still there who is never going to leave. That guy's going to be a part of the Miami Heat culture until he is 99 years old and in a wheelchair. So, no, I don't think that's going to come back and bite the Miami Heat. We'll be just fine.
Yeah, I agree. And it's now time for someone else, when you mentioned Haslam, to step up and take over that role, whether it's Jimmy, and I'm sure Jimmy already does that, but a veteran guy like that, and Haslam's probably the one to do it. So he had some interesting quotes. So that'll wrap it up. Hopefully the Miami Heat can get going soon. They don't play today. They do play tomorrow at 9 or 7:30, so hopefully they can take care of business 7:30 Eastern tomorrow. But that'll wrap it up. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. We'll see you tomorrow.